construction funding. And Union Bank came up with $28 million of construction funding in this. And from Union Bank is our Senior Vice President, Annette Billingsley. Annette?
Thank you, Mayor Green. It's a pleasure for us to be here this morning. And while we provided $28 million in construction funding, we look at this process as a real team sport. There are so many different funding levels to get these projects, to bring them to life. So we feel we're a piece of the puzzle, and I think it's very fair to say that the process went very smoothly with all the funders. And I want to particularly thank Union City for the significant amount of financial funds that they contributed to make this project come about. We have had a long and deep relationship with MidPen, and I want to thank Matt Franklin and Jan Lindenthal for their tremendous leadership in bringing this wonderful community to life. We always get excited. We're at a lot of grant openings, and they're all wonderful in their own way, but I particularly enjoy these projects that are high density, as Matt alluded to, as well as transit-oriented. I will say that both my colleague Jonathan Clyde and I did take BART to attend, and I actually had forgotten that the orientation of BART was the other direction. So I'm hopeful that the proposition that the mayor referred to passes on November 6th, because it would be, I think, wonderful for not just this project, but all the communities around here to have easy access to BART. It's the way forward for all the development going forward, and our bank feels very committed to transit-oriented development. So it's a privilege to be here today. I congratulate the city, MidPen, for their vision on this wonderful project, and I look forward to the tour in a little while. Thank you.
Elias here to my left was wondering if this was a swimming pool, and he said, well, it might be a little shallow for swimming, but he correctly pointed out that for a baby it might work. So I guess Tony set up our new Leisure Service Department program right here, parent-infant swimming lessons right here, which I remember many years ago. All right, from a bank which I had nothing against Union Bank. I had a relative who worked there for many years, so that's great. And from a bank which I actually am a customer of, Chase, which provided $25 million in tax credits for this development, is Andy Madera, senior banker. Andy?
Hi, everybody. My name's Andy Madera. I'm with J.P. Morgan Chase. We're one of the country's largest investors in low-income housing tax credits, and also one of the country's largest construction and perm lenders in community development space as well. I actually grew up in Hayward, in South Hayward, and I remember, back in those days, we actually did come into Union City because you guys had the drive-in movie theaters. I don't know if you guys remember the $2 carload over here, and then there was the one over where the big shopping center is now. So, but we didn't come here because there really wasn't a good reason to be at this site. So now when I see what's happening at the Station Center and Station District, it really is just remarkable. And so when I learned that MidPen with Union City was working on this project, without a doubt, we really jumped at the opportunity to really present a proposal to be the low-income housing tax credit investor and also the construction lender on phase 2. I'll tell you that we, through J.P. Morgan, we invest maybe $700-800 million a year in low-income housing tax credits. All of that being done mostly 99.9% through third parties. Very few of it does the bank directly invest in a project, but the bank was so impressed with MidPen, so impressed with the work that MidPen and the city were doing together on this project that really one of the few projects that we invest with on a direct basis was both phases here. So when you do that, we're really in here for the long term, and we're really in here as essentially a passive investor. We don't have a lot of control over what happens on the day-to-day. So when you do that, you really you're careful about doing that with the very best. So the very best developers, the very best managers who are going to be here day in and day out for the next 30 whatever years it's going to be here. And so when it's MidPen, when it's Matt, when it's Jan, you know that you can't go wrong. So we appreciate the opportunity, and we look forward to doing more with you. Thank you.
Andy had to mention the combination of Hayward and drive-ins in an opening paragraph. So it reminds me of my last story here before Matt's going to come up and tell you the logistics from here on out. Some of you have actually heard this story, but most of you haven't. I once was a Hayward resident myself, and back in the early 70s, I was dating a girl a couple doors down the road. Anyway, so we went out for the date into Union City, came back. Her dad asked me, well, where'd you go tonight? And I said, well, we went down to the drive-ins in Union City. And he said he wasn't mad about going to the drive-ins, which many men, dads might have been, but he was mad about going to Union City. He said, what? You took my daughter to Union City? I would pay money on a date not to take her anywhere else but that. The point being this, things have changed, folks. That was 1974, and 38 years later, this, among other things, are what you're seeing in Union City. The transformation has been tremendous, and we're still going in the up direction, and I'm sure that's going to continue in the near future. So, Matt, tell us what we need to do now. We're only like 20 minutes plus behind schedule, but that's close enough. We're not as timely as BART is these days, Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few additional quick thank yous and then logistics. I want to acknowledge Chris Guig from the Alameda County Housing Authority. Is Chris here? I think Chris is here, maybe not. So Richard was up here representing the county, but the Housing Authority was also a very substantial investor in this development. Mark Rasmussen from California Community Reinvestment Corporation also provided very substantial permanent financing, and we appreciate that, Mark. I want to recognize Joe Kirchhofer, who was MidPen's project manager, and Jan Lindenthal has been mentioned many times. If you guys could raise your hand, who I think leads the best development shop in California. And then I'd like to thank our event sponsors, J.P. Morgan Chase, Union Bank, and Swenson Builders. So logistics, just to wrap up, please join us. We're going to have a catered lunch over in the Station Center housing in the community room. We're going to have tours of the entire Station District, which we hope you'll take time to go on if you can. And then for those who spoke on the program and the other city officials, if you could join us immediately for a brief ribbon cutting in the arch of the housing, we would really appreciate that as well. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to talking over lunch.